If you're new to spreadsheets, they might seem a little bit scary, but in this video, we're going to cover all the things you need to know to get started, from formatting and creating the spreadsheet, right the way through to formulas and even some automation as well. And if you already know some of that stuff and you want to skip ahead, you can click on the chapter markers in the description to jump to the part that's most relevant to you. So let's dive in. I'm using Excel online, and you can get there just by visiting excel.cloud.microsoft, and that's going to take you to this homepage. And I'm going to click on Create Blank Workbook to start completely from scratch. This is a blank workbook in Microsoft Excel, and inside a workbook, you have worksheets. So at the bottom here, you can see I have a tab with sheet 1, and I can click this plus icon to add more sheets if I want to, which is really handy for bigger data sets, maybe cut in different ways that you want to work with. But today, we're just going to focus on using one sheet alone. And in a worksheet, you have this grid here. Each part of this grid is called a cell. At the top, we have the columns, which are letters, and then we have our rows, which are numbers down the left as well. So for example, this cell here is cell C6. And these cell references are going to be really important as we start writing formulas later on. Up at the top of the screen, we have the ribbon or the menu bar here that has all of the options for the different tools we might want to use. And just below that, we have the formula bar. So when I'm writing a formula to automatically calculate something in the sheet, I'm going to do it either in here or inside a cell, but it's always going to appear in both places when I look at it. Now, a good sheet of data always starts with a header row, so I'm going to click up in cell A1 here, and if I want to put something in this cell, I just have to type it. And for this tutorial today, I'm going to create a quarterly sales tracker, where my sales team can put in all of the deals that they've closed. So the data that they're going to enter is going to start with date, and I'm going to click the right arrow key on my keyboard to move along to cell B1, and I'm going to put region, and I'm going to put salesperson. Again, clicking right on the arrow keys on my keyboard. And you can see by default, Excel has extended the width of that column to fit the text. I can either turn that off or keep it on. I'm going to choose to keep it on. Then I'm going to type product here, customer, hit the right button again, and then amount. And instead of clicking the right arrow button, you can also click tab to move along to the next cell as well. So the idea now is each row below that would actually have the data that my sales team put in of each of the deals that they close. But before I share it with them, I want to click up on the name of the file here where it currently says book, and I'm going to change this to Q1 sales tracker. Like so. And I hit enter to save that. And now I want to make it really obvious that this is the header row. So I can just click in cell A1, and then I can drag across to cell F1 like this, and then click the bold icon on the toolbar here, and that will make all of those bold. Just next to the bold icon, I have the borders option. And if I click this arrow, you can see the different types of borders I can add to these cells. Now I'm going to add this thick bottom border like this. And if I click away, you can see now we have a line underneath it that will really help separate this from the rest of the data. And if your columns didn't automatically resize for the text inside them, you can just put your mouse between any of the columns like this and then click and drag to make it bigger or smaller. Same goes for the rows. If I want to add a bit of space between row 1 and row 2, I can do that. And again, if I click and drag to highlight all of these cells, I can also change how the text is positioned in the cell by clicking the arrow next to the align option and then choosing the middle align button here. I just think that gives everything a little bit more breathing space. If you wanted to, there are also some other options up on the toolbar to change the fill color of a cell and the text color as well, but I'm going to leave that as it is this time around. Now I'm going to start by manually putting some information in here. So I'm going to put the date in. I'm going to put 31st of May like this. Again, pressing the tab button to move across. Region, I might put North, for example. Salesperson might be James Carter like this. I'm going to press the tab button again. Product could be software license. Customer, I'm going to put Apex Industries. And then the amount is going to be 4,200 like so. And you notice on that cell, I pressed enter. And when I press enter, it actually moves down a cell to the next one, which is really handy if you want to fill a column one cell at a time. Now there's some formatting I want to do here because the amount column I want to be in dollars. So I'm going to click on column F like this to highlight the whole thing. Then I'm going to click on data on the toolbar at the top here. Then on the toolbar, you'll see there's an option here for accounting. So I'm going to click on here and then choose English United States. So it's going to use dollars like this. Now at the moment it's showing up as hash symbols, and that's because the text doesn't fit in the cell now. So I just need to mouse over like this between F and G and click and drag to make it a bit bigger. Or I can double click there and it will automatically change the width of the column to fit the text that's inside it. So now this means anytime I type an amount in another one of these cells in column F, like this, it will automatically make it a dollar amount. I'm going to delete that. And one other quick trick to share is that let's say you wanted to have a list of months in a sheet for some reason. You might put Jan, hit enter, and then put Feb, hit enter, and then put Mar like this. And you don't want to have to type them all out. So you can click and drag to highlight all three, and then click on this box on the bottom right here and drag that downwards like so, and it's going to fill out the rest of the months for you like this. This also works with things like numbers. It's worth trying out if you need to do this in a sheet. I mentioned that I want my sales team to fill out this sheet one row at a time, but the problem is with lots of people using it, it might get a bit clunky and they might end up overwriting each other's data. So that's where Jotform's Microsoft Excel integration comes into play, because I actually have created a form for them to fill out, which is a lot more user-friendly for them, but allows me to get the data in the background. So if you've got a form in Jotform like this, I've got all of the same data that's being collected, the date of the sale, the region, and I've even made these selections like this so they can't type it differently each time. The salesperson, the product, the customer name, and the amount. What you can do is go to Settings, and then choose the integrations option on the left-hand side in Jotform over here. And you'll see there is a new Microsoft Excel integration. So I'm going to click on here and I get to choose the option that I want. So I can add a row to a new workbook. So Jotform will go and create a whole new workbook for me. I can add a row to an existing workbook, which is what I want to do because I've just created that one with all the right columns. Or I can add a row to a new table or an existing table. So I'm going to click Add Row to Existing Workbook, click Next. Now I need to click Authenticate to attach my account to my Jotform account. So I sign in with my Microsoft account and I have to accept the permissions here so that Jotform can see my files and be able to add information to them. And now I'm taken to this screen where I can select a workbook. So I'm going to choose my Q1 sales tracker here and click Select on the bottom right. That's added that into Jotform just here. And I need to enter the worksheet name. Now I already have a worksheet here. It's called Sheet 1. So I'm going to type Sheet 1 like this. And I want to make sure all of my columns match up. So date of sale, for example, currently just says date here. So I'm going to call that date of sale. And customer needs to change to customer name like this. And I can also choose if I want to include things like the URL to edit the submission date, or just the ID and so on. Because we're already collecting the date on the form, the sales team have the freedom to change that in case the deal was in the past. And then I'm just going to click Save like this. Now I can see that that integration is enabled. I'm going to click on the option to preview the form at the top right of Jotform here, and then just complete this form as a bit of a test. And I click Submit. Now that that form has been submitted, if I go back to my Excel tab over here, we can see that straight away that has been added as a second row on that sheet. So now all I would need to do is share that form with my sales team. And if I go back to Jotform, it's as simple as clicking the Publish button at the top of the screen here. And then I can either share this link with people or even just click on the QR code here and give them that to scan to go and fill out that form. Every time they do, I will get that data straight into my Microsoft Excel spreadsheet here. Now you might have noticed one little thing, which is that the dates are different formats here. So just like earlier on, I'm going to click on column A to highlight the whole thing. And you can see that I've got this number format box on the toolbar here. So I'm going to click the arrow next to that and choose short date like so. And now we're going to make sure that they all match up in the format of that column. So there's no need to export data separately from Jotform. You can just connect it like this. And then every time someone fills it out, it's going to add that data directly to this spreadsheet. If you want to add a title at the top of your spreadsheet that spans the whole set of columns that you're using, you first need to right click on row 1 at the top here and choose Insert one row above. And then I'm going to click from cell A1 all the way across to cell G1 without letting go. And on the toolbar up here, I'm going to click the merge icon like this. Now that merges all of those cells together into one. And now I can type my title. So I'm just going to put Q1 sales tracking like this, hit enter, and I can click back in that cell. Maybe I'm going to change the font color to red. I'm going to make it bold as well and also make it bigger. And I'm going to click and drag the size of this row between 1 and 2 to make that a bit bigger and choose to align this with the tool in the toolbar here to middle align like this to give it a bit more breathing space. If ever you need to undo merging, you can just click back onto that merge cell, click that button in the toolbar again, and it will put them all back to how they were and move the text over to the left. I like it like that though, so I'm going to click it again to keep it. I've got a lot of data in this sheet now, but the problem is if I scroll down, I start to lose my bearings on what is what because the headings disappear and I want to know exactly which column contains which kind of data. So what I'm going to do is scroll up and I'm going to click on row 2 like this to highlight the whole row. And on the toolbar at the top of the screen, I click View like this. And there's an option here to freeze panes. So I'm going to click on there and it says freeze at selection, or I can choose top row or up to row 2 because that's the one that I've got highlighted right now. So I click up to row 2 and now you can see it's added this gray line across the sheet like this. And if I scroll, the title and those headings stay where they are. So if you imagine I get to hundreds and hundreds of rows, it means I'll never forget which column is showing what data because it will always be there in front of me on the screen. This is a really helpful, underrated feature in Excel. This doesn't just work for rows either. I could highlight a column like this if you needed this to happen the other way around. Click on column A, for example, choose freeze panes, and now you can see there's the column option. I can choose up to column A. So if I scroll to the right, it does the same thing and keeps the date there, which might be helpful for some reason too. And if ever you want to undo any of this, you just go back to that view menu, click on freeze panes again, and just choose unfreeze panes, and it will take them all away. So I'm going to reset this to keep it as it was with row 2, freeze panes, and then up to row 2. You're probably going to end up wanting to do some analysis on the data in your sheet. For example, here, I might want to just look at all of James's sales to understand how much he's contributed to the team in total. To do that, I need to filter the sheet. And to filter, I'm going to click on Data on the toolbar at the top here, and I've got the option to filter here. But before I turn this on, I'm going to click and drag across all of the headings in row 2, because by default, Excel will start the filter on row 1. I don't want that here because I've got a title in here. Now when I click filter like this and choose the filter option, it's going to add these small arrows next to all of these column headings like this. So now I can click on this arrow next to salesperson here and it will pop up this menu. It shows me all of the different salespeople's names at the bottom. There are a few other options here, so I could now sort A to Z just in this row so I can see them all listed in alphabetical order. Or I can uncheck the select all box and then just check James Carter and then choose apply. And now I just see all of James's sales here. And one quick tip is that if I click and drag to highlight all of the amounts here, at the very bottom of the screen, it will show me a sum of those amounts. So I can see straight away that he has made $23,900 for the team. To show you another quick example, I'm going to click back on here and choose to clear filter like so. And I'm going to click on date of sale, the arrow on that column heading, and choose sort A to Z. So now it's sorted in order of date. And again, I could click the arrow next to region, uncheck select all, and then just choose to see the sales from the north like this. It's super quick and easy to filter your data like this. And again, whenever you want to go back to normal, you can just click back on that filter and choose clear filter from region. As you add more and more data to a spreadsheet, you might end up with some duplicates, but the good news is you don't have to manually go and find them and remove them. You can get Excel to do that for you. It's really quick. I just click on the Data tab at the top of the screen here, and on the right-hand side there, we can see there's a button that says Remove Duplicates. It's as simple as clicking that button. It's going to ask me about the columns, but it's already found all of the right information. It knows that this data has headers, and then click OK. And it tells me 1 duplicate value was found and removed, so 19 unique values remain. I told you it was quick and easy. I click OK, and now I can carry on working in the spreadsheet. Conditional formatting in spreadsheets will allow you to do things like spot patterns at a glance without manually having to comb through all of the data. So I'm going to select the amount column here by clicking on column F at the top. And on the toolbar under the Home tab, you're looking for this button here, which is conditional formatting. And for amounts like this column, I might want to use a color scale to help me identify the highest numbers against the lowest numbers more easily. So I go to color scales, and I think this one from green to red looks good. And I click it, and now it will automatically highlight all of the colors for me. So we can see the darkest green here on row 20 is the highest number, and the darkest red, this 2,800, is the lowest number. Or I can highlight that column again. This time I'm going to clear those rules to reset everything back to how it was. And I'm going to click on the conditional formatting again and choose highlight cell rules. And I could choose the options to say greater than $5,000 should be highlighted in green, because if they sell a deal for more than 5,000, perhaps I give them a bonus. And click done. And now every number over 5,000 is highlighted. Again, I can just click on the column, go back to conditional formatting and clear those rules to set it back to how it was. You've probably heard that spreadsheets can automatically calculate things, and the way that they do that is using formulas. Now, formulas might seem really scary, but I'm going to show you some of the most common and helpful formulas right now that you can use in your spreadsheet, even if you're brand new to it. To keep things relatively simple, we're going to work with formulas based on this amounts column here, where we're going to manipulate these numbers. The very first thing I might do is just want to add all of those amounts up. So to do that, in cell F22 here, this blank cell, I'm going to type the equals symbol and type the word sum. And when I start typing a formula, it automatically starts filling that formula for me and even guesses at what I might be wanting to sum. So if you get that here at the top of this list, you can see it says sum, and in brackets it's got F3 colon F21 close brackets, and that is what would sum this amount. But to show you in a manual way, I'm just going to click the one below it like this, and it has automatically opened the brackets for me. If ever you want to understand how a formula works, it'll pop up this helpful box here, but I'm going to click the arrow to collapse it to get it out of the way. And because the brackets are open, I could either type, for example, I could put F3, which is the first column that contains a number, and you see when I type it, it's now highlighted it at the top of that column. And then I would write a colon and then put F21, which is the last number that I want to add up, and now it's highlighted that entire column of numbers. I close the brackets and then press enter, and now it will give me the answer. If you get the hashes like this, it's because the column isn't wide enough, so I can mouse over between column F and G and double click that middle bar that pops up, and it will automatically make the column wider, and there is the total. Now, another way to do this to save you typing those numbers is once you've opened the brackets, you can just click on the first cell and drag down to the last cell like this, hit enter, and then it will give you the same result. Let's delete that sum and try a different one. This time I'm going to put equals and then average. Again, it's predicting that I want to sum everything above the cell that I'm typing this in. So I'm just going to click that and it will automatically do it for me. So the average amount now is $5,584 based on all of the numbers in that row. Let's delete that one and try another one. If I wanted to find the biggest deal size, I might type equals max. Again, Excel's doing a lot of the work for me here. I told you this wasn't too scary. I can click on there, and now the max number it's pulling out is 9,200, which I can see by a quick check is right. This would obviously be really helpful if I have thousands of rows or hundreds of rows of data in this sheet. Just like with max, you could also do equals min, and that is going to find the lowest number in all of those values in the cells that I have selected here. Now let's delete that as well and take things a bit further. One of the most powerful formulas you can use in a spreadsheet is the if formula. So I'm going to add a new column here for bonuses. Let's imagine that I pay a bonus for every deal over $5,000. To do that, for each row, I need Excel to look at the amount that salesperson has closed the deal for. And if it is over $5,000, say yes. And if it's under $5,000, say no. Let's try this together. I type equals if, and I can click to start like this. And again, if I want more help, I can click on that arrow to expand that help and see how this works. But I'm going to talk you through it right now. So once the brackets are open, the first thing I need to do in an if statement is the test. So the test for us is whether the amount, so I'm going to click on cell F3 here, is more than 5,000. And then in an if statement, I type a comma, and I need to say what should happen if that is true. So if the number is more than 5,000, they're going to get a bonus. So in speech marks, I'm going to type the word yes, then a comma again. And now we're saying if that test is false, then what should it say? So in speech marks, I'm going to put the word no, like this. Close the brackets and hit enter. And if we've done it right, then we'll see that the bonus says no for this column because $4,200 is less than $5,000. And I don't have to go and type this out for every column. I can just click in the cell like this and then drag that square box all the way down to the last row like this. And so now, every time that the amount is over $5,000, it says yes to the bonus. And if you wanted to, you could pair this with conditional formatting to turn that yes green as well. Formulas are helpful for doing things on the fly, but if I want to summarize large amounts of data without even writing a single formula, that's where pivot tables come into play. So with my data here, I might want to quickly find out, for example, how each salesperson is stacked up against the other one for the amount of sales they've closed. So with a cell selected inside this data set here, I'm going to click on the Insert button on the menu at the top, and then click the Pivot Table option on the left-hand side. That pops up this panel on the right here, and it's actually giving me some suggested pivot tables, for example, like amount by salesperson. And I can insert that either on a new sheet or on this existing sheet. I'm going to choose New Sheet so we can see what this looks like. So it pulls all of the salespeople and then gives us a sum of the amount that they've made. And as we add new rows into that first sheet, this would update as well. But if I go back here, I've also got the ability to create my own pivot table from scratch. Again, I'm going to click New Sheet like this. It gives me this blank pivot table, and on the right-hand side, I can select the pivot table fields. And I want to understand the different sales data by region. So the first thing I'm going to do is drag region into rows here. So now I've got a row with East, North, South, and West. And I want to add different columns with the different information. Before I do that though, the value that I want to see for each of these is the amount that they've made. So I'm going to click and drag amount into the values box here. So straight away, it's added East, North, South, and West, and I can see how much money has been made by each of those regions. Now under columns, I'm going to click and drag product. And you can see it's added a column for each of those products like this. And the value in those columns, same as earlier, is the sum of the amount that's been sold. So consulting in the East region has made $6,400. And then I can also add filters to add a different view to this pivot table. So for that, I'm going to click and drag salesperson into there. So at the top of the sheet now, I've got this salesperson option. By default, it's selected all. And if I click on the arrow here, I can uncheck select all and just choose Tom as an example, click apply. And now this is only Tom's sales. So his region is only sold in the East. And here are each of the amounts that he's sold along with a grand total as well. This is a relatively simple example of a pivot table, but I hope you can see the power of being able to summarize your data in a different way without affecting the filtering on the main sheet. This is something that you could always come back to because you could right click and rename the sheet, for example, and call this sales by region. Then you'll always have the option to come and see that pivot table. If you find yourself doing the same thing over and over again in a spreadsheet, that's where automations are going to help you. And they're really quick and easy to set up. It's not as scary as you might think. To do that, I click the Automate tab at the top of the toolbar here. There are some preset automations like unhiding all rows and freezing selections that you can choose from. But I want to create my own. And I do that by clicking New Script on the left here and then click Create from Recording. It pops open this panel on the right, and all I've got to do now is just take actions in my sheet. So for example, I might highlight all of these cells here, this header row like this. In fact, I'm going to click on the whole row, row 2, like this. Then back under the home menu, I'm going to turn these red as well and make sure they are all bold. And you can see as I do this, it is showing me what's happening on the right, and I can remove steps if I want to. So I don't want to unbold because that won't be the case in future. I just want to bold. And then I'm also going to set the alignment to middle as well, like this. So on the right, I set the font color to red, I bolded the whole row, and I set the vertical alignment as well. When I'm done, you can do as much or as little as you want here. I click stop. That saves this script for me to be able to use elsewhere. I can click rename so I remember what it is. I'm going to call it format headings like so. And that means I could go to a new sheet and run that same automation. But just to show you how it works, I'm going to undo all of that work that I just did by hand over here. Then click over out of the way. And in this automation, I'm going to choose run. Let's see what happens. There we go. Literally in a split second, it aligned everything, changed the font color, and made it bold. We've learned a lot about using Microsoft Excel today. I hope it was helpful to get a look across lots of the different features, as well as that integration with Jotform to save you or your team having to add information to a spreadsheet manually. Just integrate with Jotform and have it add a new row for every submission that comes in right into your spreadsheet that already exists. If the video is helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.